parents, in today's episode, we will cover some of the most common concerns that our children faces today, like boosting immunity, managing screen time, handling certain fevers, home remedies for cold and cough, the best food for their growth and height, foods to avoid, and important vaccines like HPV vaccine. To answer all these questions, we have amazing pediatrician with us today, Dr. Dallen. Let's get started. Welcome to my show, Dr. Dallen. It's
Thank
my
you.
honor to you be here, and thank you so much for being on my show, Podcast with Shilpa.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So we will start the podcast with a very basic question, very common concern that I think every parent has, child's immunity. So what we parents can do to build child's immunity?
Yeah, the most important thing you can do is just have your child be healthy. So make sure they're eating fruits and vegetables, make sure they're getting adequate amounts of sleep.
Mhm.
The immune system being strengthened or bolstered or something like that is really a term and a misnomer that I believe has been created by people who want to sell you supplements and vitamins. They prey on your fear as a parent that if you don't give them these things, that their immune system won't work as well. And if your child is healthy, they do not need those. And in fact, those supplements can sometimes hurt them. A child will get sick more than a healthy adult simply because their immune system is naive. And the way that it learns is by catching illnesses. So don't feel compelled to buy some super supplement or do something different. Your child will get sick 6 to 8 times a year, the first several years of life. And usually by kindergarten, kids' immune systems have learned pretty well and have seen most of the illnesses. And if you've given them all of the recommended vaccinations, they'll be really healthy through elementary school. They might get sick once or twice a year, and they'll do really well.
Yes, you are right. My daughter, when she was in preschool and kindergarten, she used to fall sick most oftenly. But when she's in elementary and she went to the now middle school, then I think her immunity is at best level right now.
Yeah, you'll notice with your first child, they really don't get sick as often in the first few years of life.
Mhm.
But if you have several children in the home, 3 to 4, 4 children, that new baby will get sick quite often because those older children are bringing those viruses home to your baby.
So, can you name any specific foods that can help to build the child's immunity?
Outside of fruits and vegetables, there really isn't. I try and veer away for parents to make them feel guilty or compelled by not giving a specific food for a specific problem for their child. We know that green leafy vegetables are the most healthy food. After that, you can get your colorful fruits and vegetables, which add a lot of vitamin C and vitamin A, more fiber. And then your whole grains. Whole grains contain a lot of B vitamins, and they're really very healthy for you.
Most of the kids, they are facing constipation problem these days. So, how can parents help kids to prevent from constipation?
The number one thing that I see is kids start off by drinking too much cow's milk. A toddler should not have more than 16 ounces of cow's milk a day. Once they hit about age 4, 24 ounces a day is plenty. If they're eating cheese, you need to factor that in too. If a child has a lot of cheese, you may not need milk, and cheese can be very constipating as well. The other thing that is a huge variable is children start holding. Once they're about 3 years of age, just because they're busy, they don't want to go to the bathroom. And so what I coach parents to do is once you potty train your child, your work isn't done. You need to continue to take your child to the restroom every 2 hours and have them just sit on the potty so that they get used to going frequently. Because children will hold because, well, they just want to play. They don't want to take time to go. And what all of that will do is it will stretch their colon out. Once their colon stretches out, then they get constipated without trying. And it can become an issue that you have to deal with long term.
So, what are the foods that we should avoid if a kid is constipated?
Well, it's not so much the food you should avoid, it's the quantity that you
Mm-hmm.
should cut back on,
Mm-hmm.
like I talked about with the dairy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not the foods necessarily at that point, once you get the right quantities that are causing the constipation, is the fact that they're not going frequently enough, they don't have enough fiber, they're not drinking enough water. And their colon, because it's stretched out, will naturally get constipated without doing anything. So the way to get your colon to go back down to a normal size is going frequently, eating lots of fiber, drinking lots of water.
Like back in our country in India, we always say ki, if the child is constipated, don't give banana to them. So is it right?
No,
No. Okay.
yeah, but the problem is more of functional and developmental,
Mm-hmm.
chronically constipated children than it is any specific food other than outside of the quantity that I talked about.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And if the child hasn't gone to potty for 2, 3 days, like toddlers who are learning to walk or crawling, they haven't gone. So we parents get panic at that time. So what should we do at during that time?
I don't get panicked unless the stools are hard.
Mm-hmm.
If the stools are soft and they go every 2 or 3 days, that's okay.
Okay.
Just make sure you're giving your child plenty of water
Mm-hmm.
and plenty of fruits and vegetables to eat, and they will go normally.
So is there any food that can help the child to go to the potty if he hasn't gone last two days?
Fruits that start with P tend to
Mm-hmm.
be the fruits that will allow children to go more regularly.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be peaches, pears, plums.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they have higher fiber content, and the fruit sugar will also loosen up the stools a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And like these days, child obesity is one of the major concern that parents are facing. So, what do you think? Why kids are gaining so easily the weight, and what can parents do to prevent them?
So number one is sugar intake. I think innately people gravitate toward feeding their child. Well, you haven't eaten in 2 hours. You must be hungry. And that's not the case all the time. We should listen to our children when they're hungry and not force them to eat if they don't want to eat within reason. I mean, if it's dinner time and they won't eat, okay, that's fine. But then if they want to eat at 11 o'clock at night, I think you say no.
Mm.
Um, Outside of that, it's really just highly processed foods and sugars. Children will gravitate towards those foods because they're easy to eat, they taste good, and they're convenient for parents. And I think we should try and make our meals from scratch. I think we should limit processed and refined sugars. And I think the other thing is just making sure our children are active.
So, how bad, like you talk about the sugar, how bad is the sugar for kids?
Well, it's just empty calories, and children love sugar.
Mm.
Biologically, children have fewer sweet taste buds, so they can tolerate more sugar. And fruits and vegetables will taste more bitter to a child than they will to an adult. And so children will always go for the simple carbohydrates and the simple sugars because they taste good. And if you think about it evolutionarily, the children who were the chubbiest children as infants who gravitated, or as children who gravitated towards these foods, were the ones who survived a famine. But we live in a society today where our problem isn't famine. Our
Mm.
problem is an overabundance of food.
Mm.
And so children really should not be taught to eat a lot of sweet foods. Don't have them in your house. Don't have candy. Don't have pastries. Don't have simple carbohydrates in your home. Every time your child squawks for food, if it's around a meal, it's within an hour of a meal, don't give them food. Give them some water, wait for the meal, have a meal that is well balanced.
Mhm.
Let them eat, and when they're full, let them down to go play. Don't try and force them to eat more. And if they come back and they're hungry, well, they can have their food that they didn't eat during lunch or dinner back. But they don't need a snack. They don't need you to make them something else. And especially They don't need to replace healthy meals with treats.
So how bad can this child obesity be for children's?
Well, they estimate, I think the last figures showed that about 40%
Oh my
of
God.
American children were overweight or obese. And that, just leads to all kinds of problems. That can lead to type 2 diabetes. It can lead to metabolic syndrome, high blood pressure, just a whole cascade of problems that are bad for children.
Mhm. And like talking about the children's height and growth, we parents are often worried about their height and their growth. So, what are the foods that help for the children's bone growth?
Um, well, obviously, you need calcium and vitamin D, and you need adequate protein intake. But I think the thing that parents should pay attention to most is how tall is mom and dad. It doesn't matter if you have a 7 foot tall grandfather. If dad is 5'6", his son will probably be 5'6".
Mhm.
Um, and I think sometimes parents fixate on that. They believe that a bigger child is a healthier child, and it is not the case.
Mhm.
Children, should grow to about the mean, a little taller for boys than the mean parental height, and a little shorter for girls than the mean parental height, which usually puts them right in line with mom for girls and with dad for boys.
Okay. And like what are the best foods that we can give to our kids for the overall good health?
Fruits and vegetables,
That's it. Like
fresh
any
fruits and
like we talk
vegetables.
about proteins these days a lot. So
No, no, fresh fruits and vegetables, 10 times healthier.
healthier. Okay.
And protein, no, 20% of your diet should be protein.
How healthy is egg?
It's okay. I mean, egg is, quite healthy. It's just fine.
Okay.
But you should not eat an egg instead of fresh fruit or vegetable,
Okay.
right? An egg can be a healthy part of a meal.
Mhm.
Let's say it's breakfast and you're having some scrambled egg and you have some fruit with that. That's wonderful. You can make that scrambled egg healthier if you add some vegetable to the scrambled egg.
Mhm.
Maybe some bell pepper. A lot of people like to put spinach in their egg. That tastes very
Mhm.
good. And those are things that you can start early in a child's life so they become accustomed to them.
And some of the toddlers, they are very picky eaters. They don't want to eat food. They run here and there, and we mothers are always behind them so that they eat something. So, what should we do for that? Such kind of toddlers who are very picky eaters.
So, number one, don't do that.
Mhm.
Number one, do not follow your toddler.
Mhm.
Number two, don't find something they will eat. You just simply wait for your toddler to get hungry and you make them healthy food.
Mhm.
I wouldn't give your toddler something extreme that they've never tried before, especially if it looks different than other foods.
Mhm.
But, most toddlers will eat one meal a day really well. It's usually breakfast. And then the rest of the day, they'll want to graze. And so what I do is I have you feed them a nice big breakfast and,
Mhm.
give them whole grains, give them fruits, maybe some yogurt. And then a couple of hours later, they'll be hungry. Great. Give them some apple slices or some grapes, and then make your lunch. And if they don't want to eat lunch, okay, go play, go get hungry,
Mhm.
right? I cannot think of a genetic condition that causes your child to starve themselves to death.
Mhm.
Okay. Children will not starve themselves to death. The contrary of that is moms will chase their children around all day long trying to find things that they will eat. And they're not hungry, but of course they'll eat treats. And so we give them treats, but their body's not telling them they're hungry. They don't need calories. And so what we're doing is we're creating obesity.
Mhm.
So let your child tell you when they're hungry. Still make your breakfast, lunch, and dinner and a snack in between that's healthy. And, within limits, shut down the kitchen. So if they don't eat dinner very well, but it's bedtime at 9 o'clock and your child says, but I'm hungry. You say, oh, I'm sorry, you didn't eat. We could maybe have an apple slice or something like that or a drink of water, but we'll get breakfast in the morning. Let them get hungry. I've never heard of a child starving to death by not eating for 8 hours,
Mm, right.
right?
And like, what are the foods that we should completely avoid giving to the toddlers? We should be very aware of that thing that we should not give those foods to the toddlers.
I don't know that there's foods that you should say you should never give them, but stay away from fast food. It's not good for you.
Like some foods they can get stuck with in their mouth or something like that. So some foods.
Choking hazards are going to be like fruit snacks and hard candy,
Hmm.
things of that nature, hard chips or crackers, be
Mhm.
careful with those with toddlers. But, the foods that I would say never give or rarely give your children
Mhm.
would be the fast food. So, you know, I don't want to call out McDonald's or Burger King or any of those, but if you can avoid those, don't get your children hooked and they'll be healthier.
Yeah, eating like once in a week, that is fine. Like kids
It's,
like pizza. Like my daughter,
yeah,
she always want to buy pizza on Friday from school.
yeah. I mean, it's probably fine, right? It's just if that turns into an everyday event,
Mhm.
then you have a problem, right? If pizza on Friday turns into pizza on Saturday and pizza on Sunday, and then I've had children where mom will tell me the only thing that they will eat is chicken McNuggets and
Oh
pizza.
my God. Yeah, that is
And
very
the child is massively overweight and they're very unhealthy.
mm.
And it was created because mom felt like she just needed to give her child something to eat.
Hmm.
And if you can avoid that at all costs, it's very easy to say to your child, oh, well, we had pizza yesterday. So today we have, whatever food it is. And you make it your rule, you make it your pattern.
Mhm.
And if your child is throwing a fit about it, you say, oh, I'm sorry, you're sad, but we can only have pizza on Fridays, and you leave.
Mhm.
And you let your child understand that mom decides what you eat. You can determine when you're hungry enough to eat it, and your child will be healthier.
And do you feel like does eating less means weaker immunity or
No.
poor growth?
I mean, there's malnourishment. If your child's malnourished, yes. But if your child is growing normally on the growth curve, they're not malnourished. They don't need to eat more. You're probably going to hurt their immune system in the long run by overfeeding them.
Mhm. And if the child weight is less than that actual growth curve, that is the curve you are talking about, the growth curve, then what should the parents do? They can put some fats or something in their food.
Well, uh, um, I think the best thing to do is just have your regular visits with your pediatrician
Mhm.
and see if they feel like your child is too skinny or malnourished.
Mhm.
Um, again, a child who is sitting at the 10th percentile for height
Mhm.
and first percentile for weight
Mhm.
is healthier than the child who's at the 99th percentile for weight and only 50th percentile for height. Okay, where you're positioned on the growth curve, as long as your height and weight are proportional and you're growing appropriately, that's genetics.
Mhm.
That is not nutrition.
And like vaccines, they are very important, but there are so many myths about vaccines. So, what is the biggest myth about vaccines you have here these days as a pediatrician?
I think in general, in the United States, we have turned libertarian,
Mhm.
and there has been a huge shift, and it's become a political shift that
Mhm.
has become anti science
Mhm.
and anti medicine. Um, the myths that you hear the most are vaccines cause autism, or
Mhm.
vaccines cause autoimmunity, or vaccines cause SIDS. There has never been a consistent negative outcome from vaccines that has ever been proven. And what the conspiracists will claim is that, well, Big Pharma is hiding those side effects from you because they want to make a lot of money. And the simple truth is, vaccines are not very profitable.
Mm-hmm.
Vaccines are not a way to make millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to make millions of dollars, invent a type 2 diabetes drug, invent a drug that makes people lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
But vaccines aren't the way to do it. And where it started was a physician in England named Andrew Wakefield did a fraudulent study because he was getting paid by a law firm in the United States that wanted to sue vaccine companies.
Mm-hmm.
And so he made some statements and falsified data in a research study so that he could state that vaccines were associated with autism. And even though it's been disproven, even though it's been proven that he falsified his data and he should be in jail, his legacy lives on. And he, even though he had his medical license stripped by England, he now lives in Texas, and he runs an anti-vaccine group out of Texas that will kill children. Every child who has died this year of measles, I know there's only been 3, but I think there have been 500 children admitted to the hospital this year. Over 90% of them were unimmunized.
Oh my God.
That all falls into his lap. I believe he is causing the death of those children. I believe Robert F. Kennedy, the director of Health and Human Services, who is scaring moms away from vaccinating their children, will be personally responsible for the death or severe complications of children, in children. And it's sad because children don't have a voice. Children can't speak up. And because it's children and you can scare moms out of doing it, then they make these crazy claims that are just false.
Right. And like, what is the importance of HPV vaccine?
Well, HPV vaccine prevents a virus called human papillomavirus. Human papillomavirus before vaccination in the United States infected 80% of women. The only women it didn't infect pretty much ubiquitously were nuns, Catholic nuns. And so people tend to get a little bit indignant and they tend to get a little self-righteous when you talk about human papillomavirus because they say, well, if you get it, you deserved it. Because you obviously were doing something you shouldn't be doing. You weren't in a monogamous relationship and therefore you got it.
Okay.
But if anyone actually believes that, I don't think they've lived long enough to understand, well, it takes 2 people in every relationship. You know, viruses can enter a relationship with the woman having no concept that her spouse ever contracted it at any point in her life. And it causes cervical cancer, the number 4 cause of cancer in women. And Australia, 10 years before the US, started vaccinating against HPV. And Australia is now declared HPV eradicated from the continent, which means there's no cervical cancer in Australia. It's pretty remarkable, but people will look at it in its face and they will say, well, if you get HPV, you deserve it because obviously you did something bad that we don't agree with socially, which to me is, it's pretty sad.
Right. So at what age children should get this HPV vaccine? And is it for both boys and girls?
Yes. So it's approved for both boys and girls. The reason it's approved for boys is if you only vaccinate half the population, you'll still have the
Mm-hmm.
virus. The second thing is HPV will also cause cancers in boys. They're less common. They're usually mouth cancers, but it can cause penile cancer.
Mm-hmm.
And so we vaccinate both boys and girls. It can be given as young as age 9, but generally, most children will start it around junior high.
Mm-hmm.
If you get your first dose before you are 13 years of age, you
Mm-hmm.
only need 2. After 13 years of age, you would need 3 doses. And it can be given to women, I believe, up to age 49 now.
49. And like as a pediatrician, what is the importance? Like, how important is the annual checkup for kids?
How important is a well check?
Yeah, annual checkup, like once a year, we are getting a call
Yeah, you know,
from.
I feel like it's the primary job of a pediatrician is to do well child care.
Mhm.
Um, yes, there is the sick care, there are the emergencies, things of that nature. But well child care, watching a child's development, teaching the parents about the toddler feeding slump, like we've
Mhm.
talked about,
Mhm.
teaching parents about simple child behaviors,
Mhm.
what foods to feed them. All of those things take place in a well child checkup. And if you skip those checkups, then you skip that advice and expertise, which I think is really sad.
Mhm. Because in all the countries, we don't have annual checkup for kids. Some countries they have annual checkup for kids, but not every country. So I think.
Yeah. And, the things I've caught in well checks, I've caught, tons of kids who needed things like growth hormone because they had quit growing, or they
Mhm.
had precocious puberty, or they had a heart problem that hadn't previously shown up,
Mhm.
or they had. I've picked up kids who have cancer early
Mhm.
in well checks, and if you skip those well checks, those preventative visits, you're just kind of rolling the dice because you're
Mhm.
waiting for those things to become bad enough that you take them to the emergency room, and then the emergency room doctor hopefully will pick it up. But by
Mhm.
then, it's much later. It's
Yeah.
further downstream. It's no longer preventative care. At that point, it's reactionary care. And it's one of the reasons that in the US, healthcare is so expensive.
Mhm. Right. And yeah, you are right. Like earlier, if we get to know about something, we can treat it earlier. And if
Yeah.
it's late, then it's difficult. It will be more difficult to treat that thing.
It's more difficult, it's more expensive.
Mhm.
By the time, you have it addressed when it's showing signs, it's
Mhm.
too oftentimes too late. And then
Mhm.
you're treating symptoms or you're trying to mitigate it
Mhm.
rather than fix it or stop it.
And like this is a season for cold and coughs for children. So, what is the best home remedies you can tell to prevent cold and cough?
Fluids,
Mhm.
that's the best thing. I
Drinking
like
water.
I like chicken noodle soup.
Okay.
And I like fluids. I don't like over the counter cough and cold medicines. In general, they've never been shown to be helpful,
Mhm.
and oftentimes they've been shown to be harmful. So I just coach moms to not use them.
Mhm.
In babies, having a good suction device for mucus and helping their nose stay clear helps them feed better. But there really isn't a great cough and cold medication out there or a safe one.
Okay. And what are the red flags parents should never ignore if their child is having a fever, cold, or cough?
Fever that lasts more than 4 days. If your child is under 30 days old and has a fever, if your child is having trouble breathing or distress with breathing, if when they have a fever, if you give them Tylenol or ibuprofen and you bring the fever down, but
Mhm.
they still look just incredibly ill,
Mhm.
those are all things that I would say, please take your child in.
Mhm. And if the child is vomiting at night, it started vomiting at night and it doesn't stop, what should the parents immediately do?
Well, if it's just once or twice, that's fine. If they think that the child is looking dehydrated,
Mm-hmm.
then they should absolutely take them in to the doctor as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
The signs of dehydration would be no wet diapers, no tears when they cry, a dry mouth. They'll just be really lethargic. Those sorts of things, they should definitely take them in.
Yeah. And like these days, screen time, like it's concerning a lot parents. So how can parents control the screen time for the kids and make sure like it's healthy for their children?
Less than an hour a day.
Less than an hour a day.
Yep.
Because we cannot stop children from the digital things, right? So,
Not necessarily. I mean, you can limit it to schoolwork, necessary screen time.
mhm.
But, if it's recreational screen time, less than an hour a day.
Mm. Like, do you get like any kids who are too much addicted to screen time in your clinic? Parents raise that concern.
You can. I've seen it before. I think more than anything, it coincides with obesity.
Okay. And like, what is the most common questions asked by parents in your clinic?
Outside of the ones we've had today, uh,
Yes.
I think you've hit most of them. Nothing, really comes to mind
Mhm.
outside of what we've talked about.
Okay. And like, what are the some example of snacks or items that you feel that are very unhealthy for young children, and we are unknowingly giving them on daily basis?
Anything that's ultra processed. So if it doesn't look like the way it looked when it was on the tree or on the
Mhm.
vine,
Mhm.
and they probably shouldn't have it
So
as a
how
snack.
bad is like fruit juices or this soda drinks for kids?
Well, they're concentrated sugar, even
Mhm.
if it's apple juice. It's just concentrated sugar,
Okay.
um, and you're just giving your child lots of sugar when you do that. There's no reason to do that. They don't need that.
Hmm. And like if talking about antibiotics, parents they often ask for antibiotics for the kids when they are actually necessary, and do they do more harm than good?
So antibiotics only treat bacterial infection.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Bacterial infection is something that can be diagnosed by their healthcare provider.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not a bacterial infection, an antibiotic won't do anything for your child.
Mm-hmm.
And then what they do is they compound the problem of bacterial resistance.
Mm-hmm. And like next, I have a rapid fire round for you. It's just a
Okay.
one line answers. You have to tell with one line reason. Milk before bedtime.
Milk before bedtime? No, not unless they're under 2 and they're nursing.
Okay. Screen time for children under 5. Like how much is too much?
Oh, more than an hour a day.
Okay. Okay. And daily vitamin supplements needed or not?
Not really needed unless your healthcare provider recommends it.
Sugar for children under 2 years. Completely no, or we can give some.
Not needed, but kids are kids, and having some birthday cake on your birthday is fun.
Fun. And one message that you will like to give to the parents, grandparents around the world, across the world who are watching this podcast.
Get your recommended vaccines for your children. Vaccines are good. Vaccines save lives.
Mhm.
Please don't listen to the nonsense that's out there.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Dallen, for being on my show. It was pleasure talking to you. I think this content will be very useful for the viewers. Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
Yeah. Hello friends, if you like any content in this video, please don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.